Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be giving you my Taurus March 2022 horoscope forecast. And yes, this does apply and pertain to the Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. Now, anyway, as far as March goes, the Sun will be in Pisces from the 1st until the 20th. So the 11th house is what will be emphasized and highlighted. Now, at this time for Taurus, well, this could be a time where there could be a lot of focus and attention on Piscean goals and aspirations, which could include metaphysical, which includes astrology, poetry, dancing, photography, and as well, what am I going to say? I'm going to say anesthesiology, but could be a remote possibility. But anyway, another thing too is that, keep in mind the Sun is also connected with the biological father and children, if you have any. This could be a time where those people could be more instrumental in goals and aspirations in your future, Taurus. They may be Pisces, Sun, Moon, or Ascendant people, or simply ones that embody Piscean characteristics. It could also be certain focus on it could be deceptive or duplicitous friends or acquaintances. But the Sun is also about wanting to shine, and it's about you did things that I spoke about before as far as goals and aspirations for Taurus. Those are things that you may want to shine in at this time. It could be even shining in expressing altruism and compassion for for your friends at this time. Maybe just standing out by simply doing that, or shining in something that's group related, that can be connected with the metaphysical, which includes astrology or poetry, photography, dancing, as some examples, or working with illusion, which such as being a magician. Um, it could be doing something too. Well, next thing I'm going to get at, the Sun is going to be in Aries as far as March goes, from the 20th until the 31st. So the 12th house will be emphasized and highlighted for Taurus. So at this time, Taurus, you might find yourself playing a lot of, it could be focusing on things that are behind, just say behind the scenes, or there's a lot of emphasis, I would say, in driving motivation for activity in solitude and seclusion. This is a time where um, it could be focusing on battling or confronting hidden adversaries. It could be people that are posing as friends, but they're secretly enemies. It could also be a time too where, keep in mind the 12th house is also the house of hidden, and again, well, as I stated before, it's a house of hidden adversaries. So it can be a time where it could be a dominant male figure, maybe a hidden adversary. It could be an Aries Sun, Moon, or a Sun person, or one that simply embodies Aries traits. And also too, it could be as well, the Sun is about actions. So it can be a time, if you act in any way that might be volatile or aggressive, combative, or turbulent, that could be more connected with your self-undoing at this time, Taurus. And you might also find yourself having some limitations with energy and vitality at this point in time. The Sun is also connected with the heart, the um, the spine, and the upper back. So there may be some issues with that at this time, because you're talking about the Sun being in the 12th house of limitations and restrictions. So, and there might also be a time too where, again, the Sun is connected with our drive and motivation. So there's more drive and motivation, I would say, at this time for doing things again in a more introverted manner, and doing so really with little hesitation or procrastination, since the Sun is in Aries. Now, the next thing up, well, there's going to be a new moon in Pisces on March 2nd. So the 11th house will be emphasized and highlighted for Taurus. At this time, Taurus, you might find yourself doing something, starting a new, could be a Piscean goal or aspiration again. As I stated before regarding Pisces, it could be something with poetry or dancing or photography or special effects, something with altruism, maybe something even with healing. It could be something also with spirituality or the metaphysical, which includes astrology. It might be the start of a friendship in which you may express a lot of compassion toward and it might also be a beginning period for some of you where it's about the forgiveness of friends at this time. And it's interesting because we have the new moon culminate. New moon starts out, okay, Pisces, and then the full moon in Virgo later in the month, and that could end with being overly judgmental and critical. It starts out the new moon could be the beginning part of the start of forgiveness and ending with culminating with the full moon in Virgo, which I think could signify stopping being overly critical and judgmental, and that could be how it may manifest. Now, it could also be a time for Taurus as far as the new moon in Pisces and the 11th house being emphasized and highlighted. It could also be a time where you might start to, it might be a beginning period of sacrificing for friends, for acquaintances, or even the beginning of joining some kind of Piscean related group, which again could be connected with the metaphysical, which includes astrology or photography or poetry or dancing, as some examples, spirituality, or even doing something with film, could be with videos. So anyway, well, next thing up, there's going to be a full moon in Virgo on let's say it's going to be on the 18th of March. So for Taurus, the 5th house will be emphasized and highlighted. So at this time for Taurus, well, one way this could manifest, it could be the completion, it could be some analytical or intellectual thing that you may enjoy. Maybe it could be the ending if you were doing some extrapolation, sports data as an isolated example. Maybe that something comes to an end with a worrisome love relationship, or maybe there's something with a lover which you might have expressed certain criticism toward, or vice versa. It could also be a time where one becomes tired, full, and exasperated at something. It could be a child. 5th house could be a child, a lover. It could be maybe the person's overly worrisome or pedantic. Again, could be very critical and judgmental, cynical. It might be a time where you might also be ending something that you may have analyzed for a certain time period regarding an investment. And this is also a time, I would say, the full moon, full moon is also about revelations and unveilings. So sometimes it could be revelation or unveiling. It could be maybe a germophobic, if that word still applies, or hypochondriac. Could be a child, could be a lover, someone prominent in your amusement or enjoyment. This could also be a time where you might be ending something like a creative endeavor which required a lot of work and attention, scrupulous attention to detail at this time as well, Taurus. Now the next thing up, well, Mercury is going to be in Aquarius as far as March goes, from the 1st until the 10th. So the 10th house will be emphasized and highlighted at this time. Taurus, you might find yourself talking about Aquarius related career ambitions. It could be something with astrology or computers or astronomy, innovation, aviation, meteorology as some examples. And it's also a time where you might be thinking more about your future, your livelihood, and attaining some kind of success and notoriety at this time too. And remember, Mercury is also connected with siblings, cousins, and neighbors. So these people, which may actually be Aquarius, Sun, Moon, or Ascendant people, or simply embody those characteristics, may figure prominently in you gaining some kind of notoriety, some recognition at this point in time. Now, hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back, but anyway. Well, next thing up, Mercury is going to be in Pisces as far as March goes, from the 10th until the 27th. So at this time, the 11th house is what will be emphasized and highlighted for Taurus. Well, one way this may manifest, there may be certain cryptic and ambiguous conversations or statements that are made with friends. It could be by friends or by you to them. If you're, just remember that, don't you got to be careful, Taurus, at this time. And if something is stated and you're not really sure what it is, and you might be misconstruing something, make sure you clarify what's being said by somebody, because this could be, if you react impulsively, it could be to your detriment. Remember that, excuse me, most, not most, but many Taurus people have, solar natal chart. They have Aries on the cusp of the 12th house, and that's really right there. That's impulsiveness and impetuous. That is connected with the self-undoing. I should know something about that because I have Aries on the cusp of my 12th house, and I'm Taurus rising. Anyway, could also be a time where you may be talking about things associated with the physical, which includes astrology, poetry, dancing, photography, imagery, with friends, with acquaintances at this time. And you might also, your mind may be you may be thinking very idealistically about goals, your objectives that you could attain at this time, and as far as your future goes at this time. But mentally, you might even be a little bit confused and ambivalent regarding where you want to go as well. And it might be a lot of analysis regarding where you want to be at some point in time. Now, the 11th house is also connected with groups, clubs, and organizations. So it may be a time where there may be a lot of conversation with these people at this point in time, and it might be things that you really maybe you dream about, you fantasize, and you might be sharing them with these people at this point in time. Mercury again is also connected with siblings, cousins, and neighbors. So these people might be figuring more prominent at this time, Taurus, in your goals, your aspirations, and group-related matters. And might even be, if you are involved in a business, it could be money that is related to a business that you may have at this point in time, and you're thinking maybe very idealistic about what you can attain, get from that at this point in time. Now, anyway, Mercury is going to be in Aries as far as March goes, from the 27th until the 31st. So the 12th house is what we emphasize and highlight. Well, Taurus, at this time, you may experience some limitations and restrictions in your communications. There might be a time where you might be expressing some pioneering thinking in private at this time. You might just be reluctant to let these ideas out at this time for whatever reason. It could also be a time to, Mercury is also connected with the hands, the arms, nerves, lungs, breathing. So it can be a time where there might be some issues with that, because you're talking about the 12th house of limitations. And it might also be a time too where again Mercury is connected with siblings, cousins, and neighbors. So these people might actually be, it could be hidden enemies at this time. Maybe there's some gossiping going on behind your back at this time that you're not cognizant of. And also too, being overly outspoken in your speech at this time could be to your detriment, could be the self-undoing at this time, Taurus. So just something to keep in mind when you're talking about this Mercury in Aries in the 12th house being emphasized and highlighted. At this time as well, next thing I'm going to get to, well, Venus will be in Capricorn as far as March goes, from the 1st until the 7th. So at this time, Taurus, the 9th house will be emphasized and highlighted. This could be manifest and could be very premeditative spending on higher education or traveling abroad. You may be spending money on Capricorn higher education courses, which could include dentistry or accounting, masonry, if that's applicable, information technology, something with politics or the government. At this time, it's also about valuing consistency in your beliefs at this time, I would say as well. And it could also be in religious related matters. Now, Venus is also connected with your self-worth, your self-esteem, and how you feel about yourself. So this could be a time, Taurus, where that could be predicated on your own really standing by. Could be what you believe in. It could be expanding horizons, but doing so in maybe very methodical Capricorn manner at this time. And also, too, the next thing I want to get at, Venus is going to be in Aquarius as far as March goes, from the 6th to the 31st. So at this time, the 10th house will be emphasized, highlighted. Now, at this time, Taurus, you might find yourself making, it could be, if you're doing something with astrology, say you could be making money in that, in your career. It could be valuing moving forward at this time in career-related matters, and also expressing love to the dominant parent, which is often the father, but because we're talking about Aquarius, it could be more in a friendship manner. Could also be a time to, you might value altruism and selflessness being expressed with older people, the dominant parent, which is also the father, and even authority figures at this time. Taurus. And it's also a time too where you're talking about Venus is also about peace. So you might be at this time desiring more peace at your place of business. It can be also a time where you may be valuing just simply being unobtrusive, selfless, altruistic, considerate. And the fact that the 10th house is emphasized and highlighted, those qualities may be difficult to suppress and hide, so that could actually be good. And also valuing maybe just being, the nonconformist, eclectic, somebody that's very, it's very unique. I have Aquarius on my 10th house cusp, actually, and I joke with people sometimes. I say, and I'm just a nonconformist, and I think that's a lot of that's attributed to my Aquarius on the midheaven, and the midheaven reflects what we have difficulty in hiding and suppressing. Now, anyway, next thing up, Mars is going to be in Capricorn as far as March goes, from the 1st until the 6th, so the 9th house will be emphasized and highlighted for Taurus. So at this time, Taurus, well, it may be a time where situations with in-laws and grandchildren, if applicable, may be more contentious, even acrimonious than usual. There may be arguments over responsibilities and stature in life, or just being responsible. Could be issues over consistency, or even just general coldness or callousness, I would say, as well. But at the same time, you may be expending a lot of energy and vitality in 9th house related matters, such as higher education, publishing, advertising, traveling abroad. Could be religious related matters, and being in Capricorn may be doing so very regimented fashion, doing this with a lot of consistency, and doing it in a very disciplined type of manner as well. Now, the next thing up, well, Mars is going to be in Aquarius as far as March goes, from the 6th until the 31st. So at this time, the 10th house is what will be emphasized and highlighted. Now, this could be a time for you, Taurus, where it could be the situation with the dominant parent, which is often the father. Authority figures, older people, may be contentious, even acrimonious. There may be arguments regarding one's future, or goals, or aspirations, or maybe it has to do with some bizarre behavior. Maybe it's on the part of authority figures. It might be just people that are just very unpredictable, that are connected with your 10th house. It could be people that are at your place of business. Maybe they're not overly reliable. And it might be a time too where there could also be unpredictable outbursts. Maybe there's something going on with the public image and reputation at this time. But it could also be manifesting, expending a lot of energy and vitality in Aquarius related career. And it could be, again, something with astrology or computers or electronics, meteorology, aviation, innovation, as some examples. Now, next thing up. Okay, well, Jupiter is going to be in Pisces for the entirety of March 2022, so the 11th house is what will be emphasized and highlighted. Hold on a moment, people. Anyway, well, again, Jupiter will be in Pisces, so the 11th house will be emphasized and highlighted. So at this time, Taurus, you might find yourself, this can enlarge. In some cases, it could be deception, duplicity regarding friends at this time, or acquaintances, or people that are prominent that you know in groups, clubs, or organizations. It can also be it could be prosperous for doing something Pisces related, associated with a goal or aspiration, again, such as physical, which includes astrology or dancing, photography, poetry, even anesthesiology. Could be working in special effects. But it's also time to where it could be very fortuitous for friendships. It could simply be by expressing compassion, sacrifice, altruism to these people at this point in time. And this is a time where you can also, sometimes it could expand idealism and even unrealism. And being in the 11th house, matters with friendships. It could be where you're really, maybe you could be trying to overlook friends and acquaintances' transgressions, and the fact that Jupiter can enlarge things. That's what it could be doing at this point in time. But you might also be a time too where you're more optimistic regarding your future at this time, Taurus. But it could also enlarge. Remember that Jupiter, as I've spoken about in previous videos, is paradoxical. It can be very strongly benign and benevolent, but it could also have a tendency to enlarge and expand, and it might enlarge confusion in regards to your future at this time. Your future, the Pisces energy emphasizing your 11th house at this time, Taurus. It could be a time where your future maybe, you might see it as nebulous or unclear, and Jupiter can enlarge that at this point in time. Now, next thing up, Saturn's going to be in Aquarius for the entire month of March 2022, so the 10th house is what will be emphasized and highlighted. Well, Taurus, one thing is you might be a time where you could be taken care of, but debilitated or sickly. Could be dominant parent, which is often the father or an older person or somebody even in a position of authority who you might have some rapport with. It could also be a time too where you might be having more responsibilities that are career related at this time. It could be where you're giving of yourself selflessly. And it could be doing something Aquarius related. It might be doing some work with humanitarianism or computers or astrology or electronics, innovation, as some examples. Now, as I've talked about previous videos, is that Saturn in Aquarius, I think collectively, I think the way it's manifesting is just a lot of restrictions in being in society and integrating in society. A lot of it due to at least the COVID variant being somewhat prevalent at this time. And see, for Taurus, it might, for whatever reason, maybe it's impacting their career at this time more so than usual. Maybe it has some interactions with older people that they once had. Uh, it can be trying to attain some greater stature in life or social status as well. Since we're talking about the 10th house, another thing. Well, the next thing I want to get at is that okay, Uranus is going to be in Taurus, of course, for the entire month of March 2022. So for Taurus, the first house is what we emphasized and highlight. Now at this time, Taurus, well, it's an interesting transit. This can manifest in a number of ways. I mean, you may be interested in Uranus. I don't know if you would say Uranus new beginnings, such as computers or electronics, working in aerospace, new technology, aviation, astrology as some examples. It might be a time where, and also I would say television as well. And being in Taurus, it might be something that you would really value and show persistence with as well, I would say. Now, also physically, Taurus, it could be a time where you may be experiencing, could be issues with the ankles, the shins, the calves, the nerves at this time. So that's what Uranus is connected with. Or it could be some kind of intermittent, like twitching, because that could be, Uranus could be connected with that, and spasms, which could be in the neck or throat area. Now, it could also be a time too where friendships that may be very stable, loyal, steadfast, stolid, those people may be impacting your new beginnings, may be playing more of an integral role in that at this time for you, Taurus. Now, keep in mind that some of you will have a chart. You'll have a transit of Uranus will be in the 12th house. So, for those of you at this time, it might be where you have something innovative. It might be innovative ideas that you might be suppressing, or maybe you're having difficulty in doing so, in expressing them at this point in time. And you may be experiencing disruptions in your sleep at this time as well, and even trying to isolate. And keep in mind too, in some isolated cases, if you're having the transit of Uranus in your 12th house, it could be that there might be some some changes in your behavior that might be misconstrued, as some kind of mental illness in some cases. In many cases, it wouldn't be the case that there was a mental illness, but it might be misconstrued by others because you just might be going through some certain changes that might be confounding. Remember, Uranus is the unusual. It could be idiosyncratic behavior, and your 12th house is the house of deception and confusion, so it might be confusing people just because you might be doing something a little bit different, certain things a little bit different than you ordinarily would. Now, next thing up, Neptune is still going to be in Pisces, and it will be for the entire month of March 2022, so the 11th house is what will be emphasized and highlighted. Well, at this time, Taurus, you might find yourself again, this reinforces and reaffirms could be certain confusion in your goals and aspirations, your future may be, you might see it as nebulous or unclear. I felt like this for some time, and I currently have transit Neptune in Pisces intercepted actually in my 11th house. But anyway, it might also be more idealistic in attaining goals and aspirations at this time. And maybe even getting, you may express idealism in getting money, from a business. And the thing interesting about this as well is that Neptune, has a connection with diseases. Pisces reflect ones that can't be eradicated. Again, the COVID variant is prevalent and has at least some prevalence at this time. And I understand there's a vaccine for it, but it's still not completely eradicated because it's not 100% foolproof. It doesn't work the same for everybody. So I still see this COVID as something that technically can't be eradicate, at least not completely. And the fact that we're talking about the 11th house of friendships, I think for Taurus, this is how it might really affect Taurus more so than most people. Getting out into groups and clubs and organizations, it might be impacting Taurus very strongly as far as that goes at this time. And you may also be experiencing, it could be some more deception and duplicity from friendships, but you might also be expressing compassion and forgiveness toward these people as well. And it could also be the dissolving and dissipation of friendships during this time for you, sadly, Taurus. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, last but not least, Pluto will still be in Capricorn, will be for the entire month of March 2022. So the ninth house is what we emphasized and highlighted for Taurus at this time. Well, in some isolated cases, it can indicate the death of could be an in-law or grandchild if applicable. It could be also a time where you may express much desire and passion for higher education, for religion. It could also be expanding horizons at this time, but you may also be going through power struggles. It could be with in-laws, it could be with foreigners at this time, and also could be a transformation of change of your philosophy at this time. And it might be one that could be very conventional and orthodox. You are talking about Capricorn. I understand it's generational, but it doesn't mean it can't have an effect on somebody by sign just because something's generational. Another thing, at this time for you, Taurus, another way it may manifest, it could be where you may be taking, some Pluto-related higher education courses. You're doing something with forensics or investigation, insurance, taxes, something with the occult, which includes astrology, embalming, as some examples. And this is a time too where you may be more secretive too regarding your beliefs and philosophies at this time, more so than usual. And there may be a lot of emotional intensity and passion, even obsession with publishing and advertising at this time, and doing things, and maybe even foreign travel as well for you at this time, Taurus. But anyway, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.